quickly chant Mangala Sharan, and then we'll discuss. We'll continue discussing our chapter 5. Hopefully, anyway, let's chant Mangala Sharan. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyata Desatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So welcome you all once again, and we will be continuing our discussion on chapter 5, and we have completed it till verse number 16. So we'll just quickly recap what we have discussed, and then we'll continue from there. So as of now, in chapter 5, we have seen that how Krishna says about Karma Yoga and Sannyasa Yoga, though both are same. However, Karma Yoga is more easier than that and more practical as well. And then Krishna gives the information about the characteristics of Yuga Yukta, the one who works in devotion, who works for the Lord, and he says he's a very pure soul, and he is dear to everyone. And after that, Krishna says about the person who works for the Supreme, and how to work with the Supreme without detachment, and working, it actually purifies. So a question may be asked. We have seen, like, if I'm not the doer, I don't want to work, then why should I work? So we understand that Krishna says by working we purify our own self, and that is the real purpose of working. However, the motive of working is with detachment, offering to Lord, right? And then very importantly, we see in the last session the knowledge of three doers. So who are the three doers? So we understood about how soul, super soul, and material nature, these three combinedly work, very, 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 very efficiently to manage the things. So where the soul desires, the super soul sanctions, and this material nature, he helps us to make those things. And we have also understood that when we desire, if there is no sanction from super soul, we do not get this result, right? And this is this is knowledge of three things, that each and every activities or the results of the activities as well, that depends upon three things: the soul, the super soul, and the material nature. It's not only the I who is going to do it. It's actually all three are combined behind that. And then at the end of that, our discussion on last week, Krishna speaks about two things: ignorance and knowledge. Ignorance bewilders. So what is the ignorance? Ignorance of who am I, ignorance of who Supreme Lord is, and ignorance of, or no knowledge of, who is supreme and how I am related to him. So that's basically ignorance. And when we are ignorant, we are bewildered. And the last section of that was verse 16 was knowledge. Knowledge, what happens? Knowledge enlightens us. Knowledge elevates us. And what real knowledge is? Who am I? I'm not his body. I'm the spirit soul. And then who is God? He is the supreme being, the supreme soul, right? And we have a loving relationship between each other. That's the real knowledge. And when we have this spiritual knowledge, then everything automatically starts illuminating. It, as if, like Krishna gives the example, like when sun rises, there is no darkness. All darkness are clear, completely vanquished or destroyed. In a similar way, when the knowledge comes to us, what knowledge? The spiritual knowledge of who am I, knowledge of who Krishna is, knowledge of who God is, right? When this knowledge comes to us, the darkness or the ignorance by default destroys. Very nicely says that we celebrate Diwali so that this light may enlighten our reason, right? So from today we'll continue from verse 17, and we'll continue. Let me share my screen. So where we are, hope you can see my screen.
Yes, Prabhuji, we can see your screen.
Is it all okay? So should I enlarge a bit more, or zoom a bit more?
Can you zoom maybe a bit more for me?
Little bit.
Yes.
That's brilliant. That's magic. I can see now without glasses.
Okay, that's nice. So that's what we discussed last verse 16, like whenever one is enlightened with this knowledge by which nuisance is destroyed, and then this knowledge reveals everything. As Krishna says, the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So wherever there is sun, there is no darkness. Is there is a verse also is being described in Chaitanya Charitamrita direction. Krishna Surya Sama Maya hoy andhakar, jahe Krishna tahe Maya nahi adhikar. So Krishna is like sun and Maya is andhakar, ignorance or darkness. And wherever there is Krishna, there is no position of Maya. And that was verse 16. So let's continue from 17. So text 17 says, it reveals more about this, how can we fix ourselves in Supreme Lord, right? So how can we focus on Supreme Lord, and by that actually it opens the path for liberation. And how to focus? Let's see. Krishna says, tad buddhyas tat atmanas tan nishthas tat parayana gacchante apunar avrittim jnana nirdhuta kalmasha. So when one enlightens, when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuse are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgiving through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. So in the previous verse, we have discussed about this knowledge, isn't it? And now how it can be revealed more when one's intelligence, mind, faith, they all take refuge at the Supreme Lord. So remember, we are discussing this again and again, that whatever the process we follow, karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, or whatever process, at the end, we need to fix at the lotus feet of Supreme Lord. Then only we are actually on the right path. And then it says, Krishna says that when, by this, what happens? Through this complete knowledge, by fixing our mind, intelligence, and faith in Krishna, in Supreme Lord, we thus proceed straight on the path of liberation. So we opens the path for liberation. Everyone is looking for liberation, and these are the way how can we get liberated. What, how? By putting our intelligence, mind, faith, and onto Krishna's lotus feet. And Prabhupada nicely says, this was very small one, very, very on to the point. Prabhupada says, as he says, when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge at all fixed in the Supreme. So Prabhupada says, the Supreme transcendental truth is Lord Krishna. So the whole Bhagavad Gita centers around declaring that the Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the version of all Vedic literature. Paratattva means the Supreme Reality. And who is understood by the knowers of the Supreme as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The three ways to understand Krishna that we have discussed a little bit earlier, that Brahman, the Supreme Effulgence, the Paramatma, the Super Soul, and the Bhagavan, or Bhagavan is the Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the last word in the Absolute. So there is nothing more than that. And Brahman is the first realization, Paramatma is the second realization, and Bhagavan is the highest and the topmost one. And Lord Krishna says that Mataha Paratram Nanyat Kinchid Asti Dhananjaya. Krishna says that nothing is beyond me. And impersonal Brahman, which is the first realization of Brahman, is also supported by Krishna, as says Brahmano hi pradisthaham. So therefore, in all ways, Krishna is the supreme reality. So Krishna, so this Brahman, or the first realization of the Supreme Lord, this Brahman, that is also is actually the base of that Brahman is Krishna, because that's the effulgence is coming out from the Krishna's body. So the base is Krishna, right? And then Paramatma is again an expansion of Krishna, and Bhagavan is Krishna himself. So these are the three ways to understand Krishna. However, the absolute or the highest one is to understand Krishna as Supreme Lord, Supreme Bhagavan, Krishna, right? And therefore, In all ways, Krishna is the supreme reality. And one whose mind, intelligence, faith, refuses are always in Krishna. See, the verse says, when one intelligence, mind, faith, and refugee are all fixed in the supreme. And Prabhupada nicely described the who is supreme. He very elegantly in just couple of 4 or 5 lines, he come to the point that who is Krishna? Krishna is the supreme personality, and Krishna is the supreme reality. And hence, one whose mind, intelligence, faith, refugee are always in Krishna, or in other words, one who is fully in Krishna consciousness is undoubtedly washed clean of all misgivings and is in perfect knowledge in everything concerning transcendence, isn't it? So that's why it's being said that we should read the scriptures in accordance with the Shastras, in accordance with the Acharyas, and see very clearly, very efficiently, Prabhupada mentions clearly that how the supreme lays being connected to Krishna, right? And hence, a Krishna conscious person can thoroughly understand that there is duality, simultaneously identity and individuality in Krishna. And equipped with such transcendental knowledge, one can make steady progress in the path of liberation. So the concept is we all are looking for liberation somehow or other. But this is the real process by which, by understanding Krishna, by focusing our mind, intelligence, our activities, our thoughts, taking shelter of Krishna, taking refuge of Krishna, that's how we can actually open the path for liberation. And gradually, by our dedication, by our enthusiasm, we can progress to the path of liberation, right? Let's see, and 18 again. If this verse also speaks more about this knowledge and what that knowledge is. So as of now, Krishna says about that this verse 17 verse says the focus on Supreme Lord leads to liberation. So when we use our intelligence, our minds, our thoughts, our activities towards Krishna, we open the path for liberation. And now let's see what Krishna says, that a person who is in this perfect knowledge, how he thinks and what he sees. Vidya vinay sampanne brahmane gavhastini suni chaiva swapache pakecha pandita samadarshina. So pandita samadarshina, pandita is the one who is a wise person. And who is the wise? Let's see what says. The humble says, or the wise, by virtue of his true knowledge. See, the knowledge can also be true, knowledge can also be false. Isopanita explains this more elaborately about this knowledge as well. How the knowledge can be false, and how the knowledge, so Prabhupada says that by the virtue of true knowledge. What the true knowledge? People sometimes say, okay, the knowledge I have got about things that, okay, sometime I can become God. That's not the real knowledge. That's why this says by the humble sages, by the virtue of true knowledge, what he sees with equal vision a learned, a gentle Brahman, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater or outcast. He sees everyone in an equal vision. That is one is Samadarshina. That's is called as Pandita Samadarshina. That's a person is wise. How he is? So you can see definitely we can discriminate that, okay, this is a Brahman, it's a very learned, right? This is a cow, it's an animal. This is an elephant, it's also animal, a dog. However, this cow, elephant, and dog, they comes in a category of animal, but this cow comes in mode of goodness. The elephant is in fact mode of passion, and dog is mode of ignorance. The dog and dog are mode of ignorance. So that's how. But this person who has a complete true knowledge of what? Who am I? I am not his body. I'm the supreme spirit. I'm the spirit soul, and there is supreme spirit, a supreme soul. By understanding that, this person sees everyone in equal vision. It means what? The body, the outer thing, what we see, that may be different from a Brahmana, a person, a cow, an animal, a dog, an animal, a dog eater, I mean a low caste. But he says as Samadarshina because he understands that in every living entity there is supreme soul, and that supreme soul is equal, isn't it? Let's see what Prabhupada says in the purport. Prabhupada says a Krishna conscious person does not make any distinctions between species and castes. So either a dog or an animal or a human being, there is no distinction. In what sense? That Krishna is residing within everyone. Right. So the Brahmana and the outcast may be a different from a social point of view, or a dog, a cow, an elephant may be different from the point of views of species. But these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. Why? Because this is due to their relationship to the Supreme, for the Supreme Lord by his plurality person as Paramatma, who is present in everyone's heart. So the real understanding is that what it says, that Panditya, this is the wise person, he is Samadarshina. Right? How is Samadarshina? He is Samadarshina because he understands that within the Brahmana, within a wise person, within a cow, within an elephant, with a dog, or any person, there is a spiritual spark. And even after that, there is just someone supreme is there. There's Paramatma. So Paramatma is actually within everyone. Right? And hence this Brahmanas, he is Samadarshina. So that's the last purpose, is that the super soul is present in all bodies without distinction. The super soul is actually, you may say, okay, if someone takes a birth of in a dog, then why do God or Supreme Lord Krishna need to enter in that as a Paramatma? What's the need? But Krishna is non-dual. He is equal to every living entity. He says, everyone is my own parts and parcel, and hence Krishna enters in each and every living entity. So that is a real knowledge, the understanding that the soul and the super soul, they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. However, there's a distinction. The distinction is that the super soul is huge, Vibhu, and the soul is Anu. A soul is a different parts and parcel, but Krishna Supreme is the complete whole one. Right. So that's Krishna gives in the knowledge about the equal vision of a self-realized person, how a self-realized person who understands this knowledge sees everyone in an equal vision. We'll elaborate this verse, this thing again when we discuss chapter 10. In chapter 10, again, Krishna says this more elaborately as well. Right. Where he says, I enter into each atom, each living entity as well. So in that we can understand that Krishna expands himself. He entered into each living entity, even a tree, even a human being, even an animal or different species. Krishna is there. Even an atheist, Krishna is within him. Right. So let's see 19. The 19th verse speaks more about this Brahman platform. How the person who is on that level, he says these things. Iha eva tarjita sarga yesham shamye sitam manaha nirdosham he shamam brahma tasmad brahmani te sthita. So those whose minds are established in sameness and equality have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they already situated in Brahman. So this, see, from very second verse, we are discussing the same point that we have to be equipoised, equanimity. Who can see this suffering and happiness on the same platform? That person is actually already conquered this birth and death, because he is equipoised, and he is like Brahman, and they are already in that self-realized state. Right. Prabhupada says equanimity of mind, as just mentioned above, is a sign of self-realization. So only by self-realization we can actually be on this platform of equipoised, or understanding things as same as in previous verses. A Brahmana, the wise who sees a Brahmana, a dog, or elephant on the same platform. So those who have actually attained to such a stage should be considered to have conquered material conditions, specifically birth and death. So as long as one identifies with his body, he is called conditioned soul, and as long as one is elevated to this position, he becomes he's conquered this birth and death. Right. And Prabhupada says, in the other word, he is no longer subject to take birth in the material world, but can enter into the spiritual sky after death. Right. So such a person who is on this platform is considered to be liberated. And I will see, again, it's mentioned here as well, that their symptoms are described in two more verses, 21 and 20 and 21. The person who is on that self-realized state, or the self-realized person. If you remember, even in chapter 2, Sthita Pragya, Prabhupada, so Krishna explains about these qualities of Sthita Pragya. And now Krishna is going to explain it again. And it's being said again and again, because we need to elevate our consciousness, we need to elevate our thoughts toward that position one day. Right? Because Krishna says that, when we act, or all our activities, when we think, thought, make the things in the mode of goodness, we actually try to cultivate those things, and gradually we elevate our own self. Right. Let's see what it says. What the qualities again of this liberated person? Na presit priyam prapya, nodich prapya cha priyam, sthira buddhir asamuddho, brahma with brahmani sthita. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence. See, each things are actually very, very important. He says, a person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments for obtaining something unpleasant. Right? The words are different, but if you see the essence, even described earlier as well. Krishna says that, okay, don't think of fighting at that for getting kingdom. Don't give up the mentality of happiness and losing or winning. Right. The same way here we say that anyone who does not rejoice even in achieving something pleasant and neither laments for obtaining something unpleasant, that person is self-realized or self-intelligent. The person, he remains unbewildered because he understands what? The science of God. So when we understand the science of God, we see that whatever comes to us, that actually because of something happened behind the scene. If you remember, we discussed earlier about three doers. So whatever happening is not only just, I'm not the only real cause. There are three more things. The super soul and the material nature are actually also entitled for the activities, and hence it comes. So if without sanction of Lord, nothing happens. Right. So that's how Prabhupada says the symptoms of the self-realized persons are given here in these two verses. The first symptom is that he is not illusioned by the false identification of the body with his true self. So two things, very important. Prabhupada says, he is not illusioned of what? By the false identification of the body. So he's not illusioned by the false identification of the body. He understands that I am not this body. Right. And the second one is that with his true self, he understands that I am spiritual spark. So these are the two things. So he is not illusioned by misidentification of this body, and also he understands very well who he is. So he knows perfectly well that he is not this body, but a fragmental portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, not joyful in achieving something, or does not lament, he loses something, anything which is related to body. Right? And that person is called as sthira buddhi, or kind of steady in mind, equipoised self-intelligence. Right? And that's why he also never bewildered. Krishna says he never bewildered as well. Right? Asamuddho. He's not bewildered by these things because he has perfect knowledge. He knows about Brahmavid. He knows about who Krishna is, who am I. He knows this perfectly. Hence, he is not being bewildered. That the state being described about the quality of that. And then in 21st verse, let's see what it says. Again, another quality being described here as well. Bhaya sparsheva saktatma Vindete atmane yat sukham Brahma yoga yuktatma sukam akshayam asnute. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. See, again, what the most quality is that this person is not attracted toward the sense pleasure. It's not just about giving up something. He's also actually attached, what? In trance. He always thinks himself in the connection of Krishna. He's always busy engaging his mind's body in activities toward the service of Krishna, and hence he remains in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. And hence this self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness. Can you see it? So when we are in the state, when we take shelter of Lord, when we divert our activities towards Lord, then we can experience this unlimited happiness, because he concentrates on the Supreme. So the essence is here, mana manabhav mad bhakto. So again, enatena prakarena mana Krishna niveshata. So whatever we do, wherever we do, just try to concentrate our mind in Krishna, right? So that's how this person who is self-realized, who is equipoised, who is samadarsina, who sees a dog, elephant, human being, even a dog eater, it doesn't discriminate between their caste and creeds. He sees everyone in equal vision, and then he remains always intact with the Supreme Lord. He enjoys within, and he is, very importantly, unattached to sense pleasure. That's the quality of self-realized person. All right, and then let's see in 20 seconds, just for a quick recap on these two verses, is being says nicely that what are symptoms of this realized persons? He does not rejoice something pleasant, does not lament for something unpleasant. His mind is completely fixed. He has fixed intelligence. He is not unbewildered, and he knows the supreme science of God, right? And he is situated in the transcendence. He is unattracted to the material pleasure. He enjoys within, and he realizes Paramatma. He understands who Krishna is as a Paramatma. This is basically the symptoms of the self-realized person. And then these two verses, let's try to complete these two verses, 22 and 23, where it says that very important, sense enjoyment is ultimately distressful. Right? It may be unpleasant to hear, but yeah, this is the fact. Let's see what Krishna says. Ye hi samparse ja bhoga dukkha yonena evate adya antavatam kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha. An intelligent person does not take part in source of misery. What are the sources of miseries? Which are due to contact with the material senses, isn't it? So definitely an intelligent person, he will not take part in the source of misery. And nicely describes here what are those, basically what are the sources of this misery. Because these are due to contact with the material senses. When we try to do sense gratification, when we try to enjoy for our sense enjoyment, when we try to work only for our sense enjoyment, that is the source of miseries. And an intelligent person definitely should not take part in source of miseries. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end. So the wise man does not delight in them. So anything, isn't it? Anything we see, there's a beginning and an end. Yeah, it maybe says sometimes, there are some things which has a good beginning, but as a bad end. Sometimes we see something as a good, bad start or bad beginning, but at the end we see something fruitful. So even we see sense controls, when in Krishna consciousness we have to control our senses, like taking Krishna prasadam and offer food to Krishna, chant the holy name, engage our activities in Krishna. So it becomes a bit very difficult as well, because these are difficult in the start and difficult in the beginning, but at the end we are trying to achieve the highest thing, that Krishna prema, right? So even in material senses, these are, sometimes we have our heart get something, and as soon as we get, it finishes. But the spiritual things, what we get, as soon as we get, we actually hanker more for it. We understand that there is something more is there, something more is there, and that's how it's always blissful, right? Prabhupada says material sense pleasures are due to contact of the material senses, which are all temporary, because the body itself is temporary. So whatever we see, whatever we try to enjoy, everything is temporary, because the body itself is temporary. And hence, a liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. So knowing well the joy of transcendental pleasure, how can a liberated soul agree to enjoy false pleasure? Even in Padma Purana it says, Ramante yogina ante satyanande chidatmani iti rama padanashau parama brahma buddhistyate. So the mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth, and therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. When we chant the holy name Rama is called as a pleasure giving potency. So that's how this is Lord Rama says, right? So they are always, when they are always engaged in devotional service, they get unlimited transcendental pleasure or blissful, right? So, and let's see what the next verse is. 23 is again 23 says that okay, in this verse is basically other way around. It says we need to somehow or other kind of tolerate things, isn't it? Or tolerates our, or checks the sense gratification propensities, right? And in this verse 23rd verse says how long we need to wait for it, or how long we need to stop this tolerating, or see. Yeah, we have time, we can cover this one. Saknoti haiva yah sodhum प्राक शरीर विमोक्षणात् काम क्रोध भयं वेगम सयुक्तः सयुक्ति नरः. Before giving up the present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of material senses, check the force of desire and anger, he will be situated and is happy in this world. So the point is, how long we'll have to tolerate the urges of material senses? How long? Till our giving of this body. It means we have to practice ourselves every now and then, so that at the time of giving of this body, we can completely be situated in the position that we do not have any material desire left, or we can easily control our sense gratification and check the force of desire and anger, so we don't have any more anxiety. And if we practice this every day, we can be happy, we can remain happy in this world. So how, whatever we have, we can understand, we can be grateful to that. We can every day in the morning we can say to Krishna, oh Krishna, thank you very much, so that I could wake up. Many people have died in this overnight. Whatever we have, we can actually appreciate Krishna, that okay, oh, at least I have these things. Many people in this world, they don't have these things as well. So in this way, where we appreciate things and just try to tolerate our urges of sense gratification, basically there are 6 urges being described in NOI, in atomic instruction as well. So the urges of tongue, that things can also be checked very nicely. Vacho vegam, manaso vegam. So the urges of speak, also of mind, also of tongue. So that needs to be controlled nicely. And Prabhupada says in many sense that the 3 things are very, very important, like our tongue, our belly, and our genital. These are the urges of 3 things should be controlled. And the best process to control these 3 things, urges of tongue means wanted to eat many different things. The urges of belly, again, because the tongue again goes to belly and eating things. And then urges of our genitals, that's having completely sex desires. So these things to be under control, and these things are on aligned in the same straight line. So when we try to control our sense of tongue by eating Krishna prasadam, by chanting the holy name, gradually we could see and realize that yes, the urges of belly and as well as genitals are actually getting controlled by its own. So we don't have to forcefully control those things. So that's how someone can actually tolerate these urges. So by controlling our just tongue, by controlling tongue to, okay, I need to eat only Krishna prasadam, or I will offer things before eating it, and I'll chant the holy name. That's how by controlling the tongue only we can control the other things. I think yeah. So Prabhupada says that if one wants to make steady progress in the path of self-realization, he must try to control the forces of material senses. And there are forces of talk, as I was saying, Vacho Vegam, Manaso Vegam, Krodha Vegam, Udara Vastu Vegam. So these are the things. Prabhupada says there are the forces of talk, forces of anger, forces of mind, forces of stomach, forces of genitals, and forces of tongue. These are the 6 things. But again, these 6 things, if we can control these 3 things, are more important: the tongue, the stomach or belly, and the genitals. So one who is able to control the forces of all these different senses, the mind is called Goswami. So Go means what, is, or Swami. So Go means senses, and Swami means controller. So who can control these senses is called as Goswami. So such Goswami live strictly controlled lives and forego altogether the force of senses. And that's how basically they remain, very, because they are in a very quite self-realized states, and they remain in that state very happily. Right. So that's how I think we will stop here. Anyone have any questions or thoughts? You can let me know, and then we'll continue next session where we'll try to complete chapter 5. Right. Okay, there is no questions, so we can stop here. Granth Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavendra ki. So yes,